now, so that individuals who have to leave early or are going to be watching later will have access to this. So welcome to College and Beyond. As Courtney and I were saying, this webinar has been a year in the making. Courtney is phenomenal, and I will introduce her in a minute and how this came to be. My name is Tonya Rapley. I'm the founder of MyFab Finance. I am broadcasting from my bedroom because I'm not going into my office during quarantine, during stay for at home or what, everything else going on. They say it's safe to go out. I'll do this from home. So I'm broadcasting live from my bedroom. If you hear Karis, pardon us. That's just home life these days. As a founder of MyFab Finance, my mission is to help people become financially free so they can do more of what they love. I think that mission resonates louder than ever right now because we are experiencing a revolution. We are experiencing a shift. I think a commutative or a collective shift. Some of us have been experiencing that shift individually for quite some time, but things are changing. People are taking things into perspective, as well as starting to create an idea of what they want and what they don't want based on what we are experiencing now. And so founder of MyFab Finance, as well as owner of Club Lufa and financial educator. And I'm so excited to be doing this session because I'm a mother. I became a mother in 2018. Some of you were able to follow my pregnancy. I was able to financially prepare for my pregnancy, but that's because I'm a financial educator. So I was able to financially prepare for that pregnancy, but I also knew that I wanted to begin to plan for my son's financial future because I didn't have a college savings plan. When my parents' plan for me was, you smart enough, you're going to get scholarships. That was their plan for me. Luckily, me and my sister did get scholarships, but we still did create some student loan debt. And then going to graduate school created student loan debt as well. And so it's really important for me to plan for Karis's future, which that's my son. It's important. So as soon as I got his social security number, I went ahead and registered for a 529 plan. And I just want to say another reason why this is so important. So many of us want to give our children things that we didn't have. We want to give our children these experiences. I have friends and people who I know who, their children have, all the sneakers, they have all the gadgets and everything else, but their children don't have a college savings plan or any investments to carry them beyond once they're in their parents' household. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And that's why I'm partnering with Courtney, AKA the Ivy Investor. Courtney has been doing this training. Courtney did it last year. And when I saw she did, I was like, man, I want to do something like that for my audience. And instead of me doing it, I was like, why not partner with someone who has this information, with someone who's done it? And so without further ado, I want to introduce you to Courtney Richardson, the Ivy Investor, who is my fantastic co-host and partner in creating cultural generational change as it relates to finances, investing, the cannabis industry. She's just all that and more. So Courtney, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Tonya, for having me. My name is Courtney Richardson. I'm the founder of the Ivy Investor. We'll kind of chat it up a little bit more about what I do, how I did it, all of this other stuff. But just shout out to you, Tonya, for even giving me the space to be here and do this type of work. Tonya was the first time I got a chance to put my content out in the world beyond my blog. So I think I just hit her up one day, and this is like long time ago.
I remember, dang, yeah.
Hey, can I write something for you? And you were like, sure. And I was like, oh, great. and that was cool. And we met in person last year for the very first time. So we've been, social media friends for years. And it's just so nice how social media will bring us all together and kind of just allow us to build bridges amongst each other, amongst like-minded people that we probably would never, ever come in contact with, but for social media. So, I remember back in the day, and I'm just so proud of you. I'm just so glad everything's doing. It's fun. Everybody talks about like college, and we go to college to get a good job, to retire and, have a life, but no one ever talks about going to college to have we talk about going to college to have fun, but have fun in the career or what's after college. Mm-hmm. We never really put it in that perspective. And I think when we give each other these opportunities, we kind of show others that it's a possibility to have fun in what you do and still make money while you're doing it. Right. And I think that is just an amazing thing to show, because I mean, my parents were just like, same thing, like, hey, you're smart, you'll go to college, and it wasn't expected. It was like, hey, you're going to college. It's a question of where, but not if. And I was like, oh, really? And they were like, up. We do college. And, college for them is very different than college for us, and which will be very different for our kids about what college is going to be for them and how it's going to look like, what it's going to cost, and even dealing with the uncertainty of COVID. So we're going to definitely talk about all of that together, kind of in a nice little package. Mm-hmm. So what I think I'm going to do now is share my screen so we can kind of do it from there, if that's okay, Tonya?
Yeah, absolutely. And while you're doing that, I just want to give people a rundown. And so in the interest of time, we probably won't take questions unless they are directly related to something Courtney has just said or taught. But we would like to save questions for the end. We made sure that we carved out time for you to ask your questions at the end. But make sure that if you have a question, if you hover over your screen, then you should see the bottom bar pop up. Those of you who aren't familiar with Zoom, I think most of us are familiar with Zoom these days. A little too familiar with Zoom. I'm done Zooming. But you'll see the Q&A bubble is two like little comment conversation bubbles. And so you can ask your question there. So at the end, we can come around to those questions. If you are calling in, tweet me your question or find another way to ask your question, or you can ask your question later. And then chat in the chat box while Courtney's getting her screen acclimated. Let's go ahead and Chris in the chat box and let us know where you are dialing in from today, so we know where our folks are coming in from. Sorry, I think I hear Karis on his thing. So we know where our folks are coming in from. So let us know in the chat box where you are dialing in from. We had New York in the house. New York's always in the house. New York be like, we're gonna get this knowledge. I'm in Los Angeles. So yeah, let's just continue to converse in the chat box and then ask your questions in the Q&A. And Courtney has our screen loaded. Our beautiful flyer with both of our faces. Let's go.
All right. So thanks again, Tonya. So let's get moving. So as you guys will find out, I have lots of degrees. One of the degrees is a law degree. So I always share a disclaimer so all minds are clear. This webinar is for educational purposes only. This class does not constitute a offer to sell, a solicitation of an offer to buy, or a recommendation of any security or other product or service by MyFed Finance, the IB investor, or any other third party, regardless of whether such security, product, or service is referenced in this class. Furthermore, nothing in this class is intended to provide tax, legal, or investment advice, and nothing in this class should be construed as a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any investment security or engage in any investment strategy or transaction. The IB investor nor MyFed Finance represent that the securities, products, or services discussed in this class are suitable for any particular investor. You are solely responsible for determining whether any investment strategy, security, or related transaction is appropriate for you based on your personal investment objectives, financial circumstances, and risk tolerance. You should consult your attorney or a tax and accounting advisor regarding your specific business, legal, or tax situation. So that's always fun, but at least we're able to get that out of the way. So who am I? So my name is Courtney Richardson. As Tonya introduced me earlier, I'm the founder of the IB Investor. I have been in some way, shape, or form in the financial services industry for the last, I'm not going to date myself, last 17 years. So I'm a former 401k specialist, stockbroker, and financial advisor. I've been teaching how to invest in the stock market for about 6 years. Like I said earlier, if you guys caught it, Tonya was one of the very first places I was able to place my content somewhere other than my blog. So just in the sense of the educational realm, I have degrees for days. And you can only imagine, I did get some financial assistance, actually a lot of financial assistance, but I do have some student loan debt. But I have a BA in philosophy from University of Pittsburgh, JD from West Virginia University College of Law, and an LLM in taxation and certificate in estate planning from Temple University's Beasley School of Law. So the LLM is just the degree above the JD, which is a very specific, specialized degree. And I was named one of the 7 Black millennial financial experts to follow on Instagram in 2019 by Black Enterprise, and I was named as one of the 9 best financial planners of color for 2020 by Black Wallet. So that's my creds. Those are my street. That's my street cred, and that is actually a picture on the side of my graduation when I received my LLM in taxation, which was I graduated in August of 2017. I walked in 2018. So we're going to talk about saving for education, and And one of the things that we talk about when we're saving for education is all we do is we focus on, we do a lot of focusing on the 529 or educational type accounts. But there's kind of like the world is your oyster when it comes to educational savings. So we're going to talk about the Coverdell ESA. No one really talks about it. It's not anybody's favorite account, but it does exist. So we should talk about it, should know about it. We probably will never use it, but it's always something good to know. It's kind of like, how do I explain it? It's kind of like the brown marker. Very infrequently do I use the brown marker. Like, I'm brown, I use it because I'm a brown person and I love my browns. But in the case, I very rarely have an instance to use a brown marker.
So
Don't
true.
know, but what's not going to happen is we're not going to not have it, okay? but definitely, so we had the Coverdell ESA with the 529 plan, which we're going to talk about. And they've been kind of giving what I call some juice to the 529 plan over time. So they made a couple of different changes, which are interesting. I'm like, oh, really? You guys are just doing it because you feel like it. But the Coverdell hasn't been getting that type of love. So we're going to pretty much go really deep into 529s, talk to Coverdells. But then we have these multi-purpose accounts that kind of are out there. They exist and they are available for our children, especially in this kind of land of uncertainty. Because when you're uncertain, you're like, Courtney, I don't know if my kid's going to college, or I don't know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's fair. I mean, one thing that we have learned since March of this year is we have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. No idea whatsoever. And I think when we really focus on that, I think you can get paralyzed by fear in terms of this raging uncertainty that's going on outside. Someone told me that, at the beginning, when we were all saying 2020 vision as of January 1, no one would have told me that 2020 vision or this clarity that I was getting would come basically in the four walls of my house. No one told me. I wouldn't even believe you. I was like, oh, you're telling stories again. And so that's where we are. But multi-purpose accounts, we have the UGMA, we have the UTMA. We're going to talk about what those are and why I don't know. I didn't name these things. And then we have the Roth IRA. So let's get started on it. So the Coverdell ESA, I'm going to kind of quickly go through it because I do want you guys to know what it is, how it kind of works, and why we don't love it, because that's fair. So the Coverdell is an account that's to finance qualified education expenses. And we're going to talk about what those are, because that's kind of with everything, anytime that you're putting money away and you're getting some kind of financial benefit or some kind of tax benefit, and we'll talk about that in a second, the IRS kind of says you must color within our lines. And if you don't, that's cool, but you're not going to get the benefit. So I tell people that all of the time. So listen, if you follow their rules, you're going to get the benefits. But if you don't follow their rules, you're not going to get the benefit, and you're probably going to get penalized. So the Coverdell. So it's an account used to finance qualified education expenses of a designated beneficiary. Those are two things. I have them highlighted or underlined because those are the important facts. So in these accounts, funds grow tax-free if they're used for qualified education expenses. There's no tax on the distribution. So you see that they're kind of saying, listen, if you have this account, you use it for education, you're not going to pay any taxes on the distribution that comes out. So normally what you would pay taxes on any type of account, you'll either pay taxes on the interest, you'll pay taxes on capital gain. So they're saying you're not going to get any of that if you color within our lines.
And so with this capital gains, let's let people know who might not be familiar with capital gains.
So capital gains is a tax, or it's a capital gains tax, and it's a tax on any growth of an investment. So if I put, we'll say $100,000 in the stock market and I come away with $150,000. So my gain is $50,000. So the government's like, great. So some of that is ours, and it depends on how long you had the investment. If it's less than a year, it's going to be taxed at my ordinary income tax rate. Offhand, I don't know what it is. It may be around 20%. So let's say 20% is ours. But if I hold it for longer than a year, it would likely be 15%. So basically they're saying, hey, we want you to hold things longer than a year. And if you do, we'll give you a tax break. So that's capital gains. So capital gains is a tax that you're going to pay on a gain of an investment. And it depends, the amount of tax you pay depends how long you held the investment. So Thanks, Tonya, for that clarification. So the Coverdell, and this is why a lot of people like it, is that you can invest it in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, real estate, pretty much whatever you want. But it has to be open at a bank. So if it's open at a bank, all you have are money market accounts and CDs, certificates of death, as I call them, or a brokerage account. But the thing that people also like about Coverdells is that they can be used for elementary, high school, college, or vocational school, or any other education after high school. So why does this even matter? So before the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017, which affected 2018, you couldn't use the 529 plan for anything other than college or post-secondary expenses. So after that passed, and now you can use 10,000 of your 529 plan, which we'll talk about in a second, for elementary or high school expenses. And that includes qualified educational expenses. So I just want to give people that heads up to get it very clear. So let's see. All right, let's move on a little bit. So we talked about our friend, the 529 plan. So the 529 plan, I want to call it like the Cadillac of college savings. It has bells, it has whistles, it has the heated seats in the front and the back, it has like little puffs of air that come through the seat. Like this is it. So it's technically called a qualified tuition plan. That's what the IRS calls it. And when you look in the IRS docs, that's how it's defined. And they'll say, or the 529 plan. So it's a program set up by states and eligible schools that has two things. You can do prepayment, or you can do contributions to an account established for a student. So again, we're looking at the qualified education expenses at an eligible educational institution. So qualified educational expenses it's not just tuition, it's not just books. In some cases, it's actually room and board. Computer can be considered qualified educational expenses. We'll talk about what that list looks like in a little bit, but just to give you an idea so I want to open up the world for you. Because a lot of people think 529, they think about tuition. But interesting enough, the biggest expense being a college student is room and board. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people don't think about that. And they're like, oh, tuition. No, it's that room and board that will get you. So if you're living on campus, and this also helps with the college experience to live on campus. So a lot of people feel like, oh, I can't pay for all of college, but what if you could pay for a portion of it? And one of those things is kind of one of those lifestyle aspects of it, which is kind of living on campus and getting that living on campus experience. So here's the thing again, the funds grow tax-free if they're used for qualified education expenses. So that means there's no tax on the distribution. So there's no capital gains tax. And you can either open the 529 plan with the state or other financial institutions. So for example, Pennsylvania, I live in Philadelphia. So Pennsylvania has a 529 plan. They have what's called a prepaid plan, which is kind of like a cash account, but then they also have the availability to do a 529 investment account. Pennsylvania, if you know, a lot of people don't know this, but Vanguard is in Pennsylvania. It's actually not too far from Philadelphia. So Vanguard actually runs the Pennsylvania 529 plan. I like Vanguard generally, and this is not me saying go run out and get Vanguard, but I like Vanguard because they have really good performance, but their fees aren't that high. So it's kind of like you're getting the benefits of a hoopty because like you're not paying a lot, but you're actually getting the benefit of a really well-run investment plan or program based on their performance. So someone asked a really good question, and I'm glad they did. Can you make pre-tax contributions to a 529 plan? No, you cannot. The only time that there's very few places where the government will allow you to make pre-tax contributions. That's usually in the retirement space and in like the healthcare kind of space. And they're starting to expand it into transportation. So when I was working for the city government, we were able to use a portion of our pay pre-tax to pay for like my SEPTA pass. SEPTA is the Philadelphia like metro. So that's a really good question, Jada, but unfortunately you can't. But on the back end, if you use it for the purpose intended, those qualified education expenses, that is when it comes out tax-free. So you're putting it in after tax, but it comes out tax-free as long as you color in the IRS lines or you play by the rules.
Courtney, I have a quick question too. If you open it with the state, what happens if you move? So say you lived in Pennsylvania before and you moved to Florida. What happens to your 529? Are you able to roll it over essentially to a new state or?
You can roll it over. You can move the 529 plan, but you don't have to.
Got you.
Now, and we'll talk about this. I don't know if I didn't talk about it on this page, but the thing about 529s, one of the things that a lot of people do like is that some states actually offers tax benefits. So you may be in one state that offers no income tax benefit, because let me back up. If your state has income tax, you may be able to get a reduction on your income tax based on your contributions to a 529 plan. But not every state offers it. And some states will say, any state you can do that. You can make a contribution to any state's plan and get the benefit. Or some states are like, nah, player, you're going to put it in ours, you get no benefit. So it just really depends. So when you're looking at those types of things, like, oh, should I keep it there or should I roll it over? Those are the things that you should be thinking about, or at least looking up. Like, is there a benefit for me to contribute to a state plan? Is there and that's more or less, is there a benefit for me to contribute to the state plan or not? You can just keep it where it is.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for answering that.
Okay, so there's a couple of really good questions that I want to cover, that we can cover.
Okay.
But so the question is, can you use the 529? Can only be used for educational purposes. It cannot be used to start a business. It can't be used to do anything but education. But you can use it for trade school. So here's the thing that is, so say your child wants to, be a carpenter or something that's what we consider not traditional college, but it's post-secondary, and you can use the funds for that. There's actually,
but you still get your money. Like, your money isn't lost. I think that's another thing. She's saying, someone is asking what happens to the funds, because they're like, do they just throw my money away or give it to somebody else?
Oh, no. So that's a really good question. No, it doesn't just go anywhere. Let me just go back. So it doesn't just go anywhere, thankfully. So if you take so remember, it's purpose intended. If you're using it for qualified education expenses, tax-free. If not, it is going to be ordinary income tax on the gains. So it just really depends. But you can also move it to another beneficiary too, because guess what? You, as the owner of the 529 plan, you're in control. So if you're saying, hey, I have one kid that's definitely going, and the other kid's like, no, I'm good, mom, or I have a scholarship, or I'm daddy, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to the Army. I'm going to do whatever. The funds are not lost. But if in any occasion no one uses them for educational purposes, you can take it out. You will be penalized, but it's not the end of the world. So just to talk about the Coverdell real quick, because it's not a very sexy account, not very interesting, and it's getting less and less favored. And we'll talk about why no one really likes it. Nobody really talks about it. So the beneficiary has to be under age 18. So once somebody's 18, you can't do a Coverdell at all. Also, you're limited by how much you can put in. You cannot put more than $2,000 in per beneficiary. And your income has to be under, if you're single, $110,000, and if you're married, $220,000. So again, a lot of people get frustrated because they're like, all I can put away is $2,000. Like, really? What am I going to do with that? Now, I have a couple of friends who are like, listen, I trade, so I know I'm going to be able to grow this account larger than that, even, and that's what they do. Or they're saying, hey, Court, I do tax liens, so this may work out well, because the 529, you can't invest in things that are not included in the 529 plan. So, but we'll talk about that in a second. But again, if people are looking for options, this exists. But then a lot of my friends who are traders, they actually make more than the income. So they're just like, you win some, you lose some. But here's the other thing that no one likes, is that the funds must be distributed within 30 days of the beneficiary's 30th birthday or their death. And it just becomes very tricky. So you basically have to use it, or you basically get penalized. So again, people don't like the Coverdell does exist. They like it for the reasons that they like it, but they don't like it for the reasons that I kind of shared with you today. But I just wanted you to know it existed. So why do we like 529 plans over Coverdell? So kind of just to give you that idea of, hey, why this may be a better option for most people. So over 30 states provide income tax benefits for using their 529 plan or some kind of 529 plan. One of the states is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania does offer an income tax. I believe it's a credit and not a deduction, but they offer a credit in Pennsylvania. So the Tax Cut and Jobs Act allow $10,000 to be used for elementary elementary and secondary school. So that did not exist before. That's a brand new thing. So that was the only thing that gave pretty much gave the Coverdell the leg up on the 529, is that it could be used from K to 12, and 529 kind of picked up at college and beyond. But now that 529s can kind of eke into the K to 12 space, most people are like, well, I really don't still see the benefit. So here's the thing. There's also no income limits. There's no contribution limits. And I have a little asterisk because there's always a little asterisk. So the contribution limits there are no limits per se. Most plans will have a limit generally to say, hey, you can't put anything more than the lowest one I've seen, I think, is 275. I want to say a plan said you can't put more than 275 in the plan. But the highest I've seen is maybe about 600,000 or 700,000. So about 600,000 or 700,000 at the top. That being said, is that the contribution limits are not going to be limited, but you have to keep in mind that this money put into this account is going to be considered a gift, and it's going to be subject to gift tax. So the gift tax exclusion in 2020 is $15,000. But one of the things that everybody likes is that a beneficiary can be any age. So if I wanted to get a fourth degree, I do not. At all. But if I wanted to get a fourth degree, I can open a 529 plan and put money in there, and I'm fine. And as long as I use it for qualified education expenses, that's fine. So there's no like kind of lower limit on that. So I can be 90 years old going to school using my 529 plan. And actually a lot of people, I was reading an article about women who did a study in the Galapagos Islands, and it was related to a university. And because of that, they were able to use 529 plans, funds in their 529 plans to actually do something, actually use the money for that. And it was a really expensive trip. And I was like, okay, they were able to save in the 529, and it worked out really well for them. So it just kind of shows you that how flexible the account is. And then also when I was in the planning world, we would do accelerated gifting. Now, this is an estate planning tool, basically moving money out of a grandparent's or another family member's estate. So with accelerated gifting, you're able to multiply so the gift tax is $15,000 per person. So if you're married, it's $30,000. So we can do 30,000 times 5, which is
150. Yeah.
50. I was like 150. You could do that and put it in at one chunk. That's 5 years of your gift tax exclusion in the account. And as long as no one passes away during that 5 years, you get that benefit, or your student gets that benefit. So imagine kind of having a lump of money that's able to grow without kind of putting in 15,000 or 30,000 in every year. So you can actually use accelerated gifting with the 529 plan. It's like I said, it's a fancy kind of estate planning tool, but people do use it and it is available. And I like to tell people that it does exist. So we talked about it a little bit, like how much can you contribute? We talked about the 15,000, which is the gift tax exclusion. We talked about the accelerated gifting, that 50,000. See, I knew I wasn't going to pull it out off the top of my head, and I knew I was going to have to put it down. And then, like I said, the maximum plan is usually about 300. I've seen as low as 275, and I think California might be like around $500,000 or $600,000 in total. I think that's what their numbers were. So remember we were talking about the qualified tax-free withdrawals as long as they're used for qualified education expenses. So like I said, you have tuition, you have fees, you have required equipment. So this is a secret that not that many people know, is that I have a learning disability, which I found out about in law school. And all of my books were online, and I could listen to them because I have dysgraphia and dyslexia. And every so often, it's not terrible, but it can slow me down. And if you're reading 100 pages a night, like we were in law school, it becomes very difficult to kind of, get through what you need to get through in the time that you need to get through it. So I was able to get some assistance. I got a couple of different programs, and they weren't, because my school offered them for me because part of disability services, I didn't have to pay for them. But if you have to pay for them, these programs are anywhere upwards between $2,000 and $3,000. So like I shared, room and board, books and supplies, computer and educational software. So again, like my Microsoft Word that I needed, I could pay for that with my 529. So it's a bigger, broader scope of what we thinking that can be used. And even if you have a 529 and you have a high school student, there's a lot of things that you can use this 529 for, not just for the tuition, but things and opportunities that you may want to cultivate that are part of the educational experience, educational program that's approved, but then also it just allows you to enhance that experience. So making them a better candidate for college. So it's more than, people say like skin a cat. I think that's weird, but there's more than one way to peel a potato. So here's the thing that I like to share with people. Like, what about uncertainty? You're looking at me like, Courtney, this is all fine, well and good. But one, I don't know if my kid's going to college. They may get a scholarship. But on top of that, I just don't know. Like I said earlier, like I didn't know I was going to be hanging out in my four walls for the last 2 months. Who knew? So again, I think uncertainty has become very prevalent in our experience now. So what do we do? Like, so are we married to these college accounts? The answer is no. So this is me and my mama back in the day. You know, we were hanging tough in the 80s.
I love this picture.
Thank you. So I share, we have the UGMA and the UTMA. So the UGMA is the Uniform Gift to Minors Act, and the UTMA is the Uniform Transfers to Minors Act. So they're both custodial accounts that allow you to save on behalf of your child, their education, or any other purpose that benefits the child. So here's the thing. Cannot be for food, clothing, and shelter, because that's what you're supposed to provide as a parent. So, but anything above that, you can use the funds in the UGMA or the UTMA. Oh, UGMA and UTMA. So they stress me out just a little bit. And this is what I said. I have no love for the UGMA and the UTMA. And this is as an estate planning attorney and just an attorney, like just a person generally. So here's the thing. The account is in the child's name. So once you put the money in, you can't say, you know what, Jimmy, you made me mad. We're not doing it this way anymore. I'm going to give it to Susie. No, you're not. This is Jimmy's money. It's just and let me back up. Why do you need a custodial account for a child? So here's the thing. The law says that minors, being a minor or being under the age of majority is an infirmity. So those that are infirm cannot hold things in their own name. That being said, is that if you want to open an account for your child, it has to be in trust for or custodian for, or it has to be listed as custodian for, and then, John Doe, Jimmy, whoever. So I share that with you is that, again, if you had some other plans, you really lose a lot of control when you have a UGMA or a UTMA. And once the child reaches the age of majority, which is in the States either 18 or 21, the child can use the money for anything. And when I mean anything, they roll up with the Bentley like, hey, mom.
Thank you for my UGMA money.
And you're like, well, that's not what I want you to do. So again, and you lose a lot of control. And here's the other thing that is the kicker, is that there's a significant impact on your federal financial aid. So what happens is that I believe it's about 6% of the parents' assets are calculated towards like your EFC or your expected family contribution, but 20% of assets in a child's name are going to be counted towards EFC. So you can think about how that's really going to change so basically 3 times the amount. And like I said, you can't change beneficiaries, so you're stuck with Jimmy. Jimmy decides, or Jimmy or Jenny, or whomever decides that they want to do whatever, or they don't need the funds or whatever, and you lose that flexibility. Now with the 529, you can move the beneficiary around. The other thing is that contributions aren't tax deductible, and then on top of that, they're subject to federal income tax and capital gains tax. Now, why would we like an UTMA? Like, what would be something that we would like to use an UTMA for? Like at the end of the day, sometimes kids just need an account. But I wouldn't necessarily use this as an account for them to save, but I would use this as an account for them generally if they want to invest in the stock market. However, they want to use the account kind of freely, but it's not going to be the whole bucket. Like if I had $10,000, maybe 2 maybe in an UGMA for them, I may keep like 8 in an account that made they're called like transfer upon death. They're called payable upon death or POD account. So make sure that it's listed that they would receive the funds, but they don't actually have access to funds. So I really am careful about how much access I give to kids. And because age of majority, I can tell you, I don't remember, I think age of majority in Pennsylvania is 18, but I can tell you based on my credit issues, that at the age of 18, I was not going to be responsible with anybody's money. That being said, you don't want to put your child in a bad spot. So you want to make sure that you have these kind of things that are set up for them. So that's why I don't really love the UGMA or the UTMA. It does exist. You can have it, but I wouldn't put everything there. But now, like, I have our friend. This right here, again, we're looking at the Cadillac. We're looking at the Escalade, you know, the big thing. We have the Roth IRA. And the Roth IRA is an individual retirement account that offers tax-free growth and tax-free withdrawals in retirement. So the contribution limit is $6,000 or the child's actual earned income. So the child must have a business or a job. So someone asked earlier, like, hey, you know, what can we do with a child that wants to open a business or start a business? You can do it now. Whatever they earn from their business can go in their Roth IRA. And the reason why I like the Roth IRA, or why we heart the Roth IRA, is that it's flexible. You can withdraw your contributions. So the money that you put into the account, I shouldn't say you, but the child puts into the account, they can withdraw that without penalty. So what does that really mean? So if we have an account that's $10,000, $5,000 of it is contributions, $5,000 of it is growth. You can withdraw the $5,000 of contributions without penalty or taxing, because you've already put that money in the account. You can withdraw the earnings for college without penalty. So, like, remember I said, like, the IRS says, hey, you have to color in our lines. If you don't color in your lines, that's fine, but we're going to penalize you. And we'll tax you as income. It's only going to be taxed as income. So those earnings, if it's used for college, that $5,000 used for college, it's going to be taxed as income, but it's not going to be, you're not going to be charged a 10% penalty. It's also, retirement accounts are not counted towards financial aid. And you can also use $10,000 of the Roth for a house down payment, which is tax and penalty free. And earnings in the account are not subject to federal income tax or capital gains tax. So here's the thing. So if you have a child that's a babysitter, cuts grass, does whatever, decides they want to open their own business, this is a really good account for them. In terms of being able to say, especially if you want flexibility, you're saying, hey, I don't know if they're going to college, but I know they're going to want to do something in the future. That being said, it's not counted towards financial aid if they do go to college. It can be used for college, can be used for a housing payment, and ultimately it can be used for retirement. And the one thing that I love about the Roth IRA is that the younger you are, the better it works for you. You really get that real kind of like that juice. You get that special Polynesian sauce on top. That's really what you get there. And so I'm a definite fan of a Roth IRA if your child does have a job or a business where they're able to get earned income. So I'm just trying to take a look. Okay. Oh, really, really good question. So the question was, what's the difference between opening the 529 with the state or a financial institution? It really just depends on how do I explain it beyond that? It depends on if your state actually offers benefits for you opening to do their plan. And what I mean by benefits is that if there is some sort of income tax benefit that you receive by doing a state plan versus doing a financial institutions plan. I think one of the other things that Tonya alluded to, she said, you know, if I move from California, do I have to move it to Florida or wherever I'm going, or however that may apply? And it depends on what's going on with you. But if it's at a financial institution, you typically don't have to touch it. So if you're moving from state to state, or you're moving around. So it just really depends on what's going on with you to make the differentiation. And Jada asked a really good question. She said, if a minor can elect a one-time paycheck and they set up a Roth that same year, can future contributions be made in subsequent years if they don't earn an income? That's a great question. And the answer is no. It's a single year you have to have the earned income. So even if I am part of the FIRE movement, I don't have any income coming in that year, but I have money coming in from my investments, I can't make any contributions to my Roth because I don't have earned income. So it's always, every single tax year, you have to have earned income. It's either going to be the max contribution that you can make or the amount of money you made in terms of your earned income. So if your student makes $3,000 in a tax year, so say 2020, they made $3,000, the most they can contribute to a Roth is $3,000. Now, if they make $10,000, the most they can contribute this year, because the limit is $6,000, is $6,000. So it's either the amount that they made or $6,000, whichever is lesser. And those numbers, that $6,000 number changes every tax year. So it just really depends on what the IRS sets as the limit. So that was a really, really, really good question.
Courtney, I have another question. I'm not sure if you're going to touch this. So how do they know that it is a qualifying educational expense? Are you wiring money directly from your accounts to the educational institution? How do you basically take the money and give it to the institution?
Yeah, you should always, if it's going to be for educational expenses, your best bet is to always send it to the educational institution as your first thing. But if you're purchasing supplies, you're not going to be usually able to purchase them from the educational institution. So you basically have to submit them with your tax record, your tax receipts, and keep receipts. Whatever you do, keep your receipts. You got to keep your receipts, because you have to prove that you're using it for the 7 thing. Let me go back on there. There it is. You're using it for tuition fees, required equipment. So required equipment may be outside of the school. Room and board, there's an asterisk because it has to be through the school, that room and board aspect. But books and supplies, you're going to get that from somewhere else. And then computer and educational software, you may or may not get it from the school. So
Gotcha.
Those are things that you're going to have that receipt for and available for tax preparation. Because if you get audited, you're going to have to justify what you were doing with that money to receive the benefit. So, in sum, in terms of educational accounts, the 529 is the winner. In terms of the non-educational account, the Roth IRA is the winner. So those are kind of the things that I want you to focus on. Now, that doesn't mean the Coverdell is bad, or that it means that the UTMA are bad, or is bad, I should say. It just depends in terms of kind of being flexible and the most amount of, I guess, your bang for your buck. Your 529 is going to be the best. And I almost forgot. So 529, if there's money left over and the child has finished school, you can use $10,000 and this was passed in the Secured Act, to pay for student loans. So
that's a development, yeah.
So you're like, okay, and like I said, they've been massaging this 529 a lot. So that Coverdell is pretty much like the redheaded stepchild. It does exist, but pretty much the 529 is coming in as the winner, or at least where they're focusing their legislative muster or juice there.
I have another question about that. Does the student loans that the money's being applied to, does it have to be for the student that the 529 was set up for, or can you transfer the 529 to another child and then pay their student loans?
That's a really good question. I want to say, don't quote me on this one, because I'm pretty sure when I read about the Secure Act, when I read about this, it said that you can, like, the beneficiary of the 529 or a sibling. That's what I'm pretty sure. Let me see if I can grab that for a second, because I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because, you'll catch them. You're like, oh, that's interesting. Secure Act. But that's a really good question. So I was like, hey, do I have to transfer it over and then allow that other sibling who has debt? So it just really depends. But I'm going to try to see if I can grab it now. Okay.
And it has to go to a sibling. It wouldn't be able to go to a parent who has debt.
No. So the rule is this, that you can withdraw up to $10,000 from a 529 to pay principal and interest on a qualified student loan for a 529 beneficiary, and $10,000 per each of the beneficiary siblings. That is the rule. So I did read that, because I thought I read that in passing. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I just kind of kept moving, but I remember that kind of stuck out in my head. Like, oh,
that's interesting.
That's interesting, right? Exactly. So basically, I have a class tonight. I can't believe I have a class tonight. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking when I booked myself this way, but it's fine. But I'm basically teaching a class for the next month about Stocks 101, about step-by-step stock market investing. A lot of people have asked me about it. Like, they're like, hey, they've taken like my shorter class, but it's maybe about an hour and a half. And they're like, I need a little bit more time. And I was like, okay, I hear you. So basically we're doing week 1, setting the foundation for investing and understanding brokerage accounts. And then week 2, this is where everybody kind of gets stuck. They're like, how do I determine what I'll buy? So we're going to talk about kind of the strategies that I use in determining, what to buy. And then also how to navigate being a shareholder. You're like, what is this thing I got in the mail? It's a proxy statement. What am I going to do with this? Who are these people on this proxy statement? What does this mean? I just got, I just received a 1099, I think it's a B, 1099B. What am I supposed to do with this? So just having those conversations and determining, what to sell and understanding the tax implications of being a shareholder, which is one of the things being a shareholder is that you're owner of a company. So really having that conversations. So I think we answered that question. We have an open one. So for a Roth IRA, that's a great question. Ms. Wilson said, for a Roth IRA, can she buy shares in her child's account? So what you can buy in your Roth IRA depends on where the Roth IRA is situated, like what financial institution has it. So you can open a Roth IRA at a bank, but all you have available is bank products. So all you have available are money market accounts, savings accounts, and certificates of death or CDs. That's what you have at the bank. And then I'll talk about why I actually call them that. And then you take it to a brokerage account, like an E-Trade, a Merrill Lynch, Fidelity, I'm trying to think of the rest of them, Charles Schwab. You can actually buy shares of stock in a Roth IRA. Because that's what they have available. You can buy bonds, you can buy ETFs, you can buy mutual funds. Whatever that institution has available, that's what you can buy in that particular account at that institution. So I hope that answers your question. And why I call CDs certificates of death. So so we'll say, for example, inflation for the most part, and I'm interested to see what inflation looks like this year. For the most part, it's about 2% every year. So that means that, $1 today I will need $1.02 tomorrow, next year, to buy the same thing that I purchased with $1. That's what inflation is. So over time it's going to cost me more. I think I was looking at, we talk about gas. So gas is the big one, but gas has been all over the place. So when I started driving, I'm not dating myself, but when I started driving, my dad would leave me a $10 bill on the table. So, I had enough to get across the bridge, which was toll, because my dad lived in Jersey and I was in Philly. And he also, it was $20. I'm sorry. It was $20 bill. Yeah. $20 bill. $20 because I had to fill up the tank and pay for toll. So I completely filled up my tank, paid for toll, and still had money left over with this $20 bill. Now, $20 now, you could definitely still do that. But in the last year, $20, who's doing this?
You're not filling up your tank.
You can get off at E, but that's about it. So again, that's kind of like inflation. So that's I just give you an idea of what inflation really looks like in a day-to-day experience. But with a CDs it kind of entice you with this really nice interest rate. But when you really look at it, you're like, well, it's 1.5%, and that's way higher than you would get in a regular savings. But if you're locking your money up for 3 years, 4 years, sometimes 5 years, but inflation is 2%, you're losing 1.5% every single year that you keep the money in there. And it's like, why are we doing this again? Now, back in the day when interest rates were higher, and this may have made sense. So my grandparents had CDs and it made sense for them. But now, with interest rates being so low for such a prolonged period of time, you don't want to lock your money away when you could probably just do better than anything other than a CD, and also have access to your money at any time. Because when you're in a CD, you're locked up for at least a year, if not more. So the class that I'm teaching is 2 nights. It's 2 live classes a week. It's a live class tonight, and then we have a Q&A on Thursdays. So we kind of go back and forth just to give this really full experience about investing in the stock market, asking questions. And so I cut the price. So the price is $117.60 as opposed to $147. So that's kind of like the last minute, we're done. And it actually starts in a couple hours. So I'm super excited about it. So that's what I have going on. But I really want to answer, and I'll share the link in a second. But I really want to answer any questions that people may have about some of the things that we talked about, because I think we covered a decent amount. Just kind of as an overview, we talked about 2 big our two big questions were like the types of accounts that are available for college. So we have the Coverdell Educational Savings Account. That's what it stands for, ESA. Then you have the 529. Now, out of the two of them, the gold standard is the 529. Then we have kind of alternatives like, hey, what if we don't know what my child's going to do in 10 years, 15 years? Then you have your, out of both of them, I would really prefer the Roth IRA, but here's the kicker. You have to have some sort of earned income. So you have to have, the child has to have either a business or a job to be able to take advantage of the Roth IRA. But when they do, or if they can, and when they do, they have a lot of ability to use it for college. And then also one of the great things is that doesn't count towards their expected family contribution, as opposed to our friend the UTMA that does. And it does add up, basically triple the amount that a parent's funds would be considered. And then also you can use that for a down payment for a home, penalty and tax-free. You can use it for college. So it has a lot of different movements. And you can also use it for tax-free retirement. And what I love about the Roth is that the Roth, the sooner you invoke the Roth, the power of the Roth, the better it is over the long run, in the long term. And then you have the UGMA and the UTMA, which are great. And those are the accounts that you have to open if you're going to open any type of account for your child, because they can't own anything in their name until they become the age of majority. But when they become the age of majority, whatever's in that account is theirs, and they can take off to the races and buy the Bentley that they've always wanted. So
that's such a great, it's so clear and concise, Courtney. So thank you for bringing that. I know we're moving into the Q&A. So giving people an opportunity to ask more questions. And I'm also going to plug another, it's not an investment product, but one thing that I learned about, another type of account that I learned about when Karis did his first acting gigs, was a Coogan account. Well, not his first acting, his first modeling job was a Coogan account. And they actually required me here in California, to open up a Coogan account for him, which is also a bank account that is Karis's, but it was created for the purpose of protecting children from their parents spending all their money if they were child actors or generating money. So that's also another interesting account that I wasn't aware of, that is available for children if they are doing little modeling gigs and so forth, and here and there. It is an interest-bearing account, but it's not going to bear as much interest as a wisely funded IRA. But it is another one that's out there.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm surprised they don't call it like the Coleman account or something.
No, they call it's the Coogan. I guess Coogan was the one who probably sued his parents.
I remember Gary Coleman did too, and I was like, oh, okay. And I mean, when it happened, we were all like, oh my gosh. And then we were like, oh, you were using all his money though? That's not what you're supposed to use it for. So that's pretty cool. And that's interesting. Well, of course, if any state would have it, I think California would.
Yeah, California requires it. And another a question that I did want to bring up. Oh, someone asked ahead of time. They sent me an email, and I answered this for her, but I'm just confirming that you do need a social security number for the child, because she's pregnant. She doesn't have a social security number yet, so you do need a social security number for your child.
Right, and she can open it, and remember, you can switch the beneficiary. So you could open it as yourself, and then when the child is born, switch it over to the child. So you can do that.
Got it. Perfect. So, okay, so we have some more.
I think we have a couple of.
Okay, so we have a question in there. And thank you guys for staying. I know it's your your Sunday afternoon. Meredith has a question in here, Courtney.
Okay, let's take a look. And so Meredith's question is, if she opens a 529 for her 6-month-old and she starts working at 16, can she open a Roth IRA and have both accounts go towards her college education tax-free? Yes. So remember when you're so here's the thing with the Roth. I want to be very clear. So with the Roth, using it for college, the money, so let's go back to $10,000 again. You have $10,000 of your contribution that's been put in, and you have $10,000 of growth. $10,000, the $5,000 contribution comes out completely tax-free. Fine, you're good. But your growth is actually going to come out. It's going to be taxable, but it's not going to be penalized. So, but both of them can be used for their college education. So whatever you have going towards college, you can have whatever you want. You can also have a Coverdell and a 529. You have a UTMA. You can have all those accounts and they can all go to college, but they're just going to be treated differently based on their tax status with the IRS.
And I also want to add in there, Meredith, technically your daughter doesn't have to wait until she's 16 to start to have a job. to generate income. A few fellow financial educators who have their own businesses and so forth have their children employed with their business, whether it's as a model or, administration or promotional support or whatever it may be. And your child can have their own business. So, I mean, maybe it's not like she's out here selling t-shirts every weekend or so forth of that nature. But if she has a legally registered business, then also but Courtney, does she have to file taxes on that business to demonstrate income to the IRS when she's contributing?
So technically her income would be picked up by her parents.
Got you. Okay.
That's why she wouldn't have to do it.
Okay. Because I was like, a child is not filing business returns. Okay. So technically the income would be taken up by the parents. And so the parents would be able to say, so-and-so made this income and it's been put in their IRA. We've invested in their IRA as a result. So you don't have to wait till 16.
So actually, I was working in my dad's business at 11. He made me audit his statements. Not fun at all. So he actually worked for the state of New Jersey, and he had a contract, and he would get paid on invoices, but we had to make sure that the invoices were paid. So each check from the state of New Jersey would be in reference to an invoice. So I would have to look at the check stub to make sure that that check covered all the invoices that were submitted. And every so often there would be an invoice that was never paid. So if you don't get paid, if you don't get paid, then you're not getting the check that you need. So that's what I did. I did that for a couple hours. He paid me $10 an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, and the thing that sucks is that I think I was doing that. I was 11. So it was before the Roth started, but had we known, and it's so funny. It's like, once you get education, you can't take it away. And what I mean, like financial education, because had we known that, like I had jobs, I was working during the summer, and had I known all those things, I would have definitely had my parents open a Roth IRA, and I would put it away. I wouldn't even thought about it. So, when I was looking to buy a house or buy a house or whatever, I would have that opportunity, or even use it for law school. So I just think it's like, wow, once you get this information, like you can't take it away. It's like, oh, it's mine. I can do something really productive with it. So, so this is a really good question. So Deanna asked a question. She says, if her child has a disability and receives a monthly income for the disability, will she be able to open a Roth for her child, or does it require money being earned from a job or a business? So yes, so that is exactly, so let me clarify. It does require that money is earned from a job or a business. So, and that's exactly what the IRS was trying to get to, because a lot of people may have what we'll call it like passive income, or some kind of income coming into their pocket or their household that they didn't necessarily work for. So they said, no, it has to be earned. So in the case of a child with a disability or an adult with a disability, and that's all the income they have coming in, they cannot contribute to a Roth IRA or any account that requires that they have earned income. I hope that answers your question. So Jania asked, if her child isn't working during a tax year, can she still buy shares of Disney in the account since no money was earned? So the money, so think of it kind of two ways. So you have your money that's coming in that has to be earned, but anything that's in the pot already, you can do whatever you want with what's in the pot once it's there. So once it's there, so kind of think, I'll say put it as a basket. So we're getting ready to go to a picnic. We're putting the hamburgers in. I don't know. I don't really like picnics too much, because I don't like eating outside. I'm working on it. So you're putting things in the basket, but once you leave the house, you can't put anything else in the basket because, the refrigerator's not there, but you can move the basket around and stuff in the basket around as you want to kind of, I don't know, do whatever you want, make room, make sure that the hamburger rolls are not getting smushed by the relish, So so I say it that way. So whatever's coming in depends on if somebody's working, but what's already there, you can invest it, do whatever you want in the account. It doesn't matter if somebody's working or not.
Got it. And they can invest the gains and so forth, whatever they want. They just can't invest new money if they're not currently bringing in revenue.
Correct.
That was a really good question, and that was a really, really good clarity. Do we have any more questions, guys? We are coming towards the end. I know Courtney has her class that she's teaching tonight. For those of you guys who do have more stock related questions, you see how clear and concise she teaches this. And so for those of you who have other questions, make sure you definitely check her out. We have the other question from Sonia Courtney. I'll just go ahead and read it to you. Is it necessary to name your child as a beneficiary of the 529 when you open it?
No, you do not have to you don't have to name your child as the beneficiary. Now, if you want the child to use the funds, they have to be named as the beneficiary. So say I've been building an account for years, and they allow you to change beneficiaries within the family. So I can say, oh, I want to use this 529 plan. I've been building it for myself, but actually I really want my kid to use it, so I can move it into their name. That's change the beneficiary. So you can do that, and that's fine. So like we were saying, okay, you can open a 529 plan for a child, but what if they're not born yet? You can open it in your name and then change them and make them the beneficiary whenever you kind of get around to it.
I really wish I would have opened a 529 plan for my unborn children. I really wish I would have, and this is one of those things, if you don't know, but now you can do better and so forth. So for those of you who might have family members and so forth as well, this is I hope this is helpful information for you to share with them. And Courtney, actually, I do have one more question. I mean, I don't want to, have this on a morbid tone, but if something was to happen to the child and you have a 529 plan for them and say you don't have any other children, what happens to those funds?
That is a really good question. I think that's something I'm gonna have to look at, because I know that you can move the I know I was actually looking at this for another issue, because when I worked for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I did inheritance tax. So there was rules around inheritance tax depending, and it was actually specifically for 529 plans. So
Yeah, because I'm thinking, maybe even like, like think of Trayvon Martin. He was his parents' only child and so forth. If his mother had a 529 plan for him, what happens to it? I know she ended up going back to school. But I mean, what happens to, does the money get moved to the parents? Do they have to cash it out, et cetera? Where does the money go?
so I have an answer for you. So remember, the account owner maintains control. So you as the owner maintain control, and you can rename another beneficiary, or you can remove the money out of the plan. It's still your any earnings are going to be taxable, but you're not going to get hit with the penalty.
Got you.
So that's bad. So no, but it's a great question. I think I tweeted about it maybe last year. Is that sometimes we're so busy, you know, dealing with the emotions of death, that we're not able to deal with the business of death. And when you're not dealing with the business of death, which is horrible because of the circumstances, you end up hurting yourself more in the long term after you're done the mourning phase.
Mm-hmm.
So it just sucks. It just really does. It's really a difficult thing. Actually, I've had a couple of friends lose. I had a friend lose her father earlier this year, and her grandmother passed away 2 weeks ago. So it's just kind of like one after another. So again, we were talking about uncertainty. Like that's, I think, the most uncertain is that, we don't know what the day or the hour. So it's a really important question, as morbid as it is to know.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't want to leave it on that tone. I want to leave it on a happy tone, because this has been a phenomenal class. I know that, I mean, even I got value. I'm a financial educator, but I am not a financial advisor. I am not an investor. I am an investor, but I work with experts who are experts at it, because I know my blind spots, and I know what I'm good at and what I'm not at. And so I'm just so happy that you accepted the opportunity and accepted just the responsibility of educating this audience on it. And, this replay, if you're watching the replay, make sure that you reach out to Courtney if you are unable to take advantage of her stocks class. I'm sure that she will make it available, or, have another one coming up soon. As well as with My Fab Finance. If you're watching this replay, thank you so much for carving out the time to learn more about growing our generational wealth, because when we talk about generational wealth and so forth, a lot of it does come into, okay, how am I setting my children up to win in the future? How am I setting them up to be as successful as possible? And one thing that's interesting to me about the 529 plan is we have put a house under contract. We are moving to Georgia in the coming months. However, the school district isn't necessarily the best, and I did not have in mind that we would move to a school district that wasn't amazing initially. But the fact that we have been putting money aside for Karis's 529 plan and continue to means that if we do need to put him into private school until we move to a different area, we do have those funds available. So that's another reason you might want to think about it, is so that maybe you can't afford private school right now, but maybe you can plan for if you need those funds and resources down the line. You can go ahead and start doing that planning. Yep. So, Courtney, can you let everybody know where they can find you on social media, your website, etc.?
So I forgot I have a whole slide on that, but it doesn't matter. So you can find me, I hang out the most on Instagram. So you can find me at the Ivy Investor on Instagram. So that's THEIBY Investor. That's on Instagram. All platforms actually. The Ivy Investor on Facebook, the Ivy Investor on Twitter, but I don't tweet that much. And then the Ivy Investor actually on YouTube. I just got my branded YouTube channel.
Hey.
I'm like, I don't like video. So, but yeah, so that's what's going on. Like I said, I have the Stocks 101. I'm teaching a REIT class at the end of the month, and the REITs, for people who don't know, are real estate investment trusts. So it's basically investing in real estate companies on the stock market. So they're a little, from the tax nerd in me, I absolutely love them because they don't get taxed as a corporation. Very interesting. So I'm basically teaching that later on, but a lot of people are getting really excited or not excited about REITs based on what's going on in the economy. Mm-hmm. So really just talking about real estate as it pertains to the economy, like where do we see the opportunities? Where do we see your kind of things that are probably going to pull back, like retail? Retail is I think it's going to see a surge when like outside opens up, because people just want to go somewhere. But I think after a while, it's kind of like, well, I'm just going to go back to what I was doing before, which was ordering on Amazon and getting is your Prime working? My Prime has not been working.
My Prime is working. My Prime is popping.
Okay. Mine is like, they're like, you might get it. You might get it at some point.
My Prime has been pretty popping. They've been pretty accurate. But yeah, and I'm probably gonna sign up for that REIT class because our real estate plan has shifted, because we thought we were gonna buy a multifamily unit and start looking at the multifamily stock. It's like, none at this time of our life. We're not living there. We're not at this stage. And so I'll definitely probably be tuning into that myself. And then guys, for myself, I am Tonya Rapley at MyFab Finance. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at MyFab Finance. And then my personal bios are in the MyFab Finance social media link. And MyFab Finance Instagram bio, I should say. So guys, thank you so much. We don't have any classes coming up anytime soon, but we do have our Blue Ribbon Club for those of you who need more guidance as far as your financial journey and breaking the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck and what that looks like. Thank you so much for tuning in to this session. I'm really excited to see what all of you guys do. Please keep us updated. Go open those accounts for your children. Go open a 529 if you haven't, or look into an IRA. And as Courtney said, the benefits are opening an IRA with a investment focused company such as a Fidelity or so forth, is that you have more options available to you than if you were just to open at a bank. You would be limited to whatever products that they have to grow that money. So just keep that in mind. If you have any questions, just you can DM me, DM Courtney, me and her talk, and so I can send them and send you a response or send you her way. And I thank you so much. Thank you, Courtney. You are brilliant. You are doing such a service to us. And I totally, yes, you wrote for us. And I'm just so thankful for the value that you contribute to add to my life and the MyFab Finance community.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Well, have a good one. I put the link for the class if anybody's interested in the messages. And I just want to make sure that we caught it. I think we caught everything. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks so much, Tonya. Have a great one.
Bye, guys. Bye, Courtney.